Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking through a couple player props I like on Prizepicks for today's NBA slate on Tuesday, February the 28th. Now we actually have a really big slate today. We have a 10-game slate, so there's going to be plenty of props to like today. I'm actually going to give out 3 picks in this video. Normally I only give out 2 picks in these Prizepicks videos, but since it is such a big slate and there's more to like, figured I'd give out a few more plays. So I got 3 plays I'm going to share in this video, guys. At the time I'm making this video, there's a lot of fantasy score props up. You guys know these are some of my favorite props to look at, so we're going to talk through some fantasy scores today. I got 3 fantasy score props I like, taking a first look at the board right now. So before we do talk through these plays, as always, if you guys enjoy these Prizepicks videos, if they help you out, please hit that like button down below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. And if you guys are new to the channel and if you have never checked out Prizepicks before, you can sign up for Prizepicks. Use my promo code Noah. When you do sign up with my promo code, Prizepicks will match your first deposit up to $100. So definitely give them a try if you have not yet. If you bet player props on a sports book or any other site and you're not on Prizepicks, use that promo code when you sign up and get your first deposit matched up to $100. Now, before we talk through our plays for today, I do want to recap our 2 plays from yesterday. So in yesterday's video, we did hit the over on Mark Williams' fantasy score. Mark Williams had a pretty good game against the Pistons. It was a little bit of a sweat, came down to the last few minutes, but he did wind up going over his fantasy score. Unfortunately, though, Bam Adebayo did not go over his fantasy score. That looking back at it, that might have been a mistake on my part, taking Bam's fantasy score in that matchup against Philly. But I felt like that line was a little bit too low with Kyle Lowry out. Bam has been really good in the games without Lowry this season, but he just didn't have that great of a game yesterday. He didn't really even he didn't lose minutes or anything. He didn't really get in foul trouble. I think he picked up his 3rd foul late in the second quarter, but he only lost like a minute because of that. He played pretty much full minutes, just was not very productive. He had a bunch of turnovers, just wasn't the best game overall from Bam, and he went under his fantasy score, unfortunately. That was the only pick that we played yesterday that missed. We gave out 3 picks on Patreon, hit all 3 of those. So that was the only pick that missed yesterday that we played was the Bam fantasy score, which is super annoying. But hopefully today we can hit all these plays. Got 3 picks again for you guys that we're going to share. It is Tuesday, so it is Taco Tuesday. We'll have to wait and see what kind of discounted projections we get today. As always, every Tuesday, Prizepicks does give out some discounts throughout the day, so you want to be taking advantage of those. I think the first taco comes out in a few minutes, I think. It'll probably be up by the time I post this video. We'll see what it is, what the prop is. But let's talk through these 3 fantasy score props I like for today, guys. And the first one that we're going to talk about is going to be Daniel Gafford. His fantasy score line, it sits at 26. And I do like the over here for Daniel Gafford. I played this prop last game without Kristaps Porzingis, and Gafford had a really good game. He played 31 minutes. He had 36.7 fantasy points. Gafford's been really good without Porzingis this season, and Porzingis is once again doubtful for today, so he's not expected to play. You look at the games that Gafford's played this season without Porzingis. It's been, I believe, 8 total games this season. Yeah, 8 total games without Porzingis. He's over this fantasy score line in 6 out of those 8 games. And you look at the 2 games that he went under. Against Dallas, he played just 19 minutes because he fouled out in 19 minutes. He had 23.9 fantasy points in 19 minutes. And then against Utah, kind of weird to see him struggle so much, but he only played 20 minutes against Utah, had 17.4 fantasy points. Every other game that he's played without Porzingis this season, he's been over this fantasy score. 26.3 against Phoenix, 31.9 against Denver, 32.6 against Houston. He played Dallas again, had 34 against them. Obviously against Chicago last game, he had 36.7, and then against the Pelicans, he had 54.9. Gafford, throughout his career, has always been a productive per-minute player. He's a guy that when he's on the floor, he can score around the rim, he can grab rebounds, he's a great shot blocker, he's good at racking up steals and blocks, and those are really big for fantasy scores since they are worth 3 points each. You do look at, if you look at the splits this season with Porzingis off the floor, Gafford's averaged 1.11 fantasy points per minute. So if he plays anywhere near 30 minutes like he did last game, he's probably going to go over this fantasy score line more times than not. And if you take a look at the games he's played this season where he's played at least 25 minutes, so he's played at least 25 minutes in 14 games this season, he's over this fantasy score line in 12 out of those 14 games. The only 2 games where he played 25 minutes or more, it did not get 26 fantasy score. Against Golden State, he had 25.1 fantasy points in 28 minutes. And then against Portland, he had 23.7 fantasy points in 26 minutes. Obviously, both those games were with Porzingis. You take Porzingis off the floor, we can expect even better production from Gafford. He's going to play all of his minutes as center. And the fact that they played him 31 minutes last game makes me feel pretty good about him playing at least like 25, 30 minutes a day. And if he does play that many minutes, with how good of a per minute producer he is, I like his chances of going over 26 fantasy score. So that will be our first play for today. Daniel Gafford, more than 26 fantasy score. Next play I like, another fantasy score. I want to talk about Cam Johnson. This is another guy that I've been playing a lot lately. I feel like I've played Cameron Johnson's fantasy score like almost every single game since he's been with the Nets. He's been relatively productive at, or relatively good at going over his fantasy score, and he's been a productive per minute producer since getting traded to Brooklyn. So once again, I'm going to be taking the over on 23.5 fantasy score for Cam Johnson. You look at his 5 games, the last 5 games he's played, these are all with the Nets. Since he got traded to the Nets, he's gone over this line in 3 out of 5. But take a look at the games where he went under. Against the Knicks, he had 23.3 fantasy points, and he did not play full minutes in that game because it was a blowout. He only played 27 minutes, came up just short. The game against Chicago, that was the game, I think that was like last Friday. The Nets literally lost that game by like 40 points. At halftime, they literally had 29 points at halftime as a team. Cam Johnson in that game only played 20 minutes and had 14.2 fantasy points. Every other game, though, with Brooklyn, he's gone over this fantasy score line. Last game against Atlanta, he had by far his best game with the Nets. He put up 27 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, and a block. He played 36 minutes in that game, which was the most he had played since getting traded to Brooklyn. And his role has just been totally different on this Brooklyn team. Obviously, when he was on Phoenix, he wasn't really involved a ton in the offense. He was just kind of like a three-point shooter. But with this Brooklyn team, he's been getting a lot of usage. He's had a pretty good usage rate. He's got a 23.2% usage rate since getting traded to the Nets. And fantasy points per minute wise, he's averaged right around a fantasy point per minute, 0.96 fantasy points per minute. So if we expect around 30 minutes or more from Cam Johnson, I mean, this line is just too low at 23.5. I know he's kind of like he's mainly a scorer, so like he's not going to do a ton with the other stats, but he has been grabbing some rebounds lately. He can get defensive stats. He's had at least 1 steal or block in all of his games with Brooklyn this season, so like he can get those steals and blocks, and those are worth 3 points each. The matchup against Milwaukee, I don't think is the best. Milwaukee's a good defensive team. This game does have a little bit of blowout risk, but I think because it is being played in Brooklyn, that does make it a little bit more likely this game stays competitive. If this game was being played in Milwaukee, I would definitely be worried about a blowout, but I think being played in Brooklyn, that makes it a little bit more likely the game stays close. Right now, the spread is only 6.5, so like the books are not expecting a blowout here. And in competitive games, Cameron Johnson's gone over this fantasy score line in every competitive game. I think the only way he doesn't go over this is either he has like a really poor shooting game, or it does want to be in a blowout. Hopefully those things don't happen though. Just because of with how good of a per minute producer he's been with this Nets team, I just feel like the books are kind of underrepresenting him right now. I mean, he's basically like their number 3 option behind Dinwiddie and McHale. He's been like their number 3 scorer. And obviously last game I think he led the team in scoring. So that's going to be the next play that we go to is Cameron Johnson more than 23.5 fantasy score. And then the third and final play that I like, going to talk about the Lakers now. Want to talk about Jared Vanderbilt's fantasy score. This line sits at 25.5. This is another over that I like. I feel like this line could definitely be a little bit higher. If you watched that Lakers game last game, Jared Vanderbilt was huge for them late in that game. Just crashing the boards, getting a lot of offensive rebounds. He had a massive game against Dallas, put up 47.9 fantasy points. He had a huge double-double in that game, 15 points, 17 rebounds. He had 4 steals as well. And I think he played 27 minutes in that one. So now the Lakers are going to be without LeBron, so that just kind of takes one body out of the rotation, a guy that's going to play 35, 36 minutes. You're just going to have to spread those minutes around. I don't know if there's going to be one specific guy that sees like a massive boost in minutes, but I think you'll see more secure minutes for Vanderbilt, for Malik Beasley. Schroeder should have to play a lot. Off the bench, they still have a lot of guys off the bench that are going to play good minutes. Austin Reeves will play a good amount. We'll see who starts in place of LeBron. It'll probably be Troy Brown. But I think minutes should be pretty secure for Jared Vanderbilt, and you would think with how well he played last game, he's going to be locked into good minutes here. He's played 5 games with the Lakers since getting traded, and you can see these are the 5 games he's played. The game against Golden State had 30.6 fantasy points. He did that in only 17 minutes. Last game against Dallas had 47.9 in 27 minutes. The game against Portland, he played 22 minutes, had 22.7 fantasy points, so came up just short in that one. Against the Pelicans, he did play a lot of minutes against the Pelicans, 28 minutes. Wasn't super productive, only had 18.8 fantasy points. And then the game against Golden State, that was a blowout. He only played 18 minutes in that one, had 15.8 fantasy points. But Last game got up to 27 minutes. Now you take LeBron out of the equation, I think we can expect probably close to 27, 28 minutes again from Jared Vanderbilt. And you look at his permanent production this season. He's another guy that when he's on the floor, he's going to be productive. He's going to grab rebounds. He's going to get putbacks. He can get defensive stats as well. With LeBron off the floor this season, it's a really small sample size, obviously, because Vanderbilt's only played 5 games with the team. But in the 60 minutes he's played without LeBron on the floor, he's averaged 1.38 fantasy points per minute. So that's really, really good permanent production. You look at the games he's played at least 25 minutes this season. So I think we can assume Vanderbilt plays about at least 25 minutes, but I could definitely see him playing like 28, 29, 30. He's played at least 25 minutes this season in 23 games. Obviously, some of those games were with the Lakers. Most of those games, though, were with the Jazz when he was on Utah. But he's played 23 games this season with at least 25 minutes. He's over this fantasy score line in 15 out of those 23 games. So he's another guy that, when he does get minutes, he can produce. Minutes should be there, especially with how well he played last game. And you take LeBron out of the equation as well. Give me the over on 25.5 fantasy score for Jared Vanderbilt. And these will be 3 picks for today, guys. Since it is a bigger slate, 10 games, figured I'd give out a few extra plays, or an extra play, I should say. Daniel Gafford, more than 26 fantasy score. Cameron Johnson, more than 23.5 fantasy score. And Jared Vanderbilt, more than 25.5 fantasy score. I'm going to be taking a look at the board again, in a few hours once Prizepicks drop some more props. And I'm going to be sharing some more plays over on Patreon. So if you guys want to check those out, as always, the Patreon's linked down below in the description. Each play I do provide on Patreon, I do give a full write-up for. So if you're interested in checking that out, it's always available down in the description. But I do wish you guys the best of luck on this Tuesday. Hopefully, we can hit these 3 props, have a really good day, win some money today. If you guys enjoyed this video, though, make sure you hit that like button down below, hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. And again, lastly, if you guys are new to Prizepicks, if you have never checked out Prizepicks before, you can sign up for Prizepicks. Use my promo code NOAH. Prizepicks will match your first deposit up to $100 when you do sign up with my promo code. So check them out. If you have not yet, use that code and get your deposit bonus when you sign up. But good luck tonight, guys. Thanks as always for watching the video, supporting the content. Appreciate you guys a ton. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.